View from the Gutters, episode 14. Welcome to View from the Gutters, the comic book podcast where each episode we discuss a collected edition, trade paperback, or graphic novel, and then recommend and vote on the book for the next episode. Warning: the discussion portion of this show has massive spoilers for that book. On this episode, we discuss S.H.I.E.L.D, and, to skip ahead to the recommendation section, skip ahead to 4326. We had a slight sound quality issue on this one. One of our mics kept cutting in and out, so sorry about that, guys. Okay, everybody, welcome to View from the Gutters, episode 14.
We're pretty sure it's episode 14.
Yeah, we had to figure it out. I think that's right, though.
Yeah.
We took our winter break, gave you a special episode, and forgot our own numbering system.
Well,
we did.
It's a problem because we're still putting up episodes that we recorded like 3 months ago. So
Yeah.
we talk about how it's September.
Right.
Well, yeah, I mean, you're going to be confused, but that's okay because we're also confused.
Yeah.
That's the human condition.
We should have just restarted our numbering like Marvel this year.
We should have.
done
It's the new
Marvel
year.
number
We should
one.
do
Yeah.
View from the Gutters Volume 2, Episode 1.
Episode
Yeah.
1.
That way there can be a new Episode 1 every year, and you can collect them. Put
Right.
them up on your wall. Be very valuable and never.
We're not going to buy into that, though, because we actually, if you go back a little bit and you listen, we actually specifically say that we're not going to do that.
Do we say that?
I think we do. We do that. We do
It's a
that.
good thing you guys remember what we say, and I don't.
I've just been listening to them, so maybe we don't say it exactly like that, but
Yeah.
the point is we have integrity, and we have a commitment to our, 20 listeners, and
20.
20.
Wow. Do we have that many?
we don't,
10 max,
maybe
10.
10.
Or?
We don't do
I've downloaded
that.
it 20 times. Does
We don't
count
do
as
that.
20 listeners?
We're going to guarantee you that at no point is anybody going to switch brains with anybody else. And,
That's
I'm not going to make that
we can't
promise.
guarantee that. That's ridiculous.
well, if we do it, we'll do it in a good way.
Right.
We'll promise that if that ever happens, we'll do a reboot and say that it never happened.
Right.
Also, I just want a really high number for an episode number. Like one day I want to walk in here, probably not here, but a
We can
better
do that.
place, and be like episode 250, whatever.
They did it with Deadpool. We did Deadpool $9.99.
I don't want to just jump to it. I want to earn it.
Well,
well,
I want to
shit.
work my way up to it.
This is episode 14.
This is
That's pretty
episode
close to episode 100.
I
We
mean,
should
10 times,
probably
that's
start
like 10
planning for that
years.
right now.
I don't think any of us are going to be alive. We're going to piss off somebody badly enough in the next 10 years that they're going to kill us.
I think we could keep it going for 10 years.
You think so? Let's do it. No, we're definitely...
That's a lot of years.
We're not. I mean, whatever. I think we're just depressing people now. It's like the first podcast of the new year. We should be, hopeful.
Nah.
Actually, we should be on top of on top of things, and we should start by introducing ourselves.
Yeah, I was going to say, we
God.
need to do that. I'm Andrew Chard.
I'm Joe Preti.
I'm Tobiah Panshin.
God, you just sound so depressed to be Joe Preti.
I am. I want to be... I'm Bruce Wayne.
You can make up a new name.
We could call you Tony.
I'm Bruce Wayne. Don't call me Tony. I'm gonna do the whole podcast like this.
Please don't.
Why? Why shouldn't I?
No.
No,
No, that's awful.
it is.
That's really bad. That's one of the worst Batman impressions I've ever heard. Honestly.
I'm not doing that. I'm doing Bruce Wayne.
Oh, Bruce Wayne. This is not even like Bruce Wayne. He sounds happy.
How do you know it? Have
And
you ever
he
talked to
sounds
Bruce
happy
Wayne?
and rich.
Don't you
You ever talk to a rich person? They always sound happy.
Bruce Wayne is
Actually-
Kevin Conroy, who sounds really happy, and Batman is Kevin Conroy when he's talking in the bowels of his voice.
Yeah.
No, I just count.
I wanted to say bowels.
You wanted to say, yeah.
That was the word of the episode. If you're playing along at home, you get 10
The duck
points for
just
that.
dropped. That was
Toby
the
now
scene.
has 10 points, and you have to take 2 shots for a word of the
You
episode.
do. You do. Of NyQuil because you're probably sick because it's flu season.
Is it?
Except this is going to go up in March.
Yeah.
So
I know we're going to be behind forever. We should just pretend it's.
We'll catch up.
we'll catch up eventually.
Yeah, eventually we'll post the episode after we record it.
Okay,
Like,
all
right
right.
away.
Well, this won't go up for 5 weeks,
Yeah, roughly.
and we'll do 2 more podcasts in that time.
Yeah,
So-
not too bad. See, we're
so,
closing the gap.
I guess we are. I guess
It's
we
like
are.
Xeno's podcast.
Xeno's. It is. It really is
Closing the gap.
Xeno's. It is Xeno's podcast.
All right, so what are we talking about this week?
Marvel's S.H.I.E.L.D.
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 by Jonathan
not
Hickman.
the Shield. S.H.I.E.L.D. S.H.I.E.L.D. as in
with periods.
as in the organization that is in the Marvel Universe. What is it? I only know what it stands for from 10 years ago.
Supreme Headquarters International Espionage Law Enforcement Division.
Is that what it is?
That's what it was at one point. It was
that's what I think it's something else now.
There's
but
been at least 2 different things that it stood for.
It does not. It doesn't matter in the context of this because this is not that.
Yeah, it doesn't. They don't even tell you what it stands for in this one.
If I can take a page out of Lisa Loeb's book and say this is not that.
This is not.
No.
I did it. It happened. That it can never not happen.
So I actually made a little bit of a mistake when I recommended this. I did not realize that the series was never finished.
It's ongoing.
It is ongoing, but the last issue came out a year ago.
Yeah, that's fine.
So there was volume 1, 6 issues that was finished. There was one-shot S.H.I.E.L.D. Infinity, which is like side stories. And then there was volume 2, which starts back at issue 1 for no reason that I can understand. Yeah. And they've done 4 issues of that series.
Correct.
Issue 5 has been in the work for over a year. It has
volume 2 of the trade has been solicited on Amazon for over a year now, I think.
The artist, I think it's Dustin Weaver, he posted on his blog like pencil sketches of the issue, but he's just been like, I think he's been working on like X-Men or something like that. He's just been super swamped.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this is one of those books though that I don't feel bad that it's not coming out on time. Unlike like a Uncanny X-Men or Amazing Spider-Man or something, like a book like this, when we look back on it in retrospect, it won't have mattered that it took 6 years to come out, as long as it keeps the art and the writing up to par. You know, like if the writer takes longer, the artist takes extra time. Like this is the kind of book that benefits from sticking with the same artist.
We've talked in the past a lot about, kind of the slow roll and working on things for a long time and not necessarily falling down to that trap of like there's got to be a book every month kind of daily grind that happens a lot.
Yeah. Well,
and so if it does come out in 2, 3, 4 years, as long as it is a finished story that the writer and the artist worked on together, it's still going to be good.
Yeah, I think that I'm glad they haven't switched artists because the art is fantastic.
The art is hands down my favorite part.
Incredible.
So I'm totally happy to wait. This is the kind of I think it's a great story because it's something that they can spend a lot of time with exploring. It's not in continuity.
Yeah, and it's something kind of different from the Marvel universe.
It doesn't have to tie into Secret Invasion and Siege and Dark Reign or whatever. Like it can just kind of exist and come out in its own time and be its own thing, and that's fine. And I really love it for that. It's kind of the same way that I love Elseworlds Tales and
and even aside from the art, the writing is really good.
Yeah.
It was really confusing to me the first and even kind of the second time I read it, and I kind of had to go back and forth a little bit. Mm-hmm. Kind of like I've had to do in the past with Grant Morrison stories. It's got kind of that quality of you get more out of it as you read it over and over again.
Yeah, there's definitely it has a feeling of being set in a universe you are supposed to have seen before, but it has never been introduced to you before.
Well, it's kind of like it seems like it starts with this idea of the Marvel universe has existed and we've had all of these things in it that have supposedly existed for a very long time. Mm-hmm. Celestials, Eternals, Deviants, just various characters that are thousands of years old. And hey, let's look at a history where those things are included.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, and I think it takes a page out of Earth X's book too, with the Celestial at the core being.
It's definitely drawing from that source pretty heavily.
To see and I think I appreciate your comparing it to something Grant Morrison writes, because I agree with that in the way that I'm like totally underwhelmed by it. It needs an ending. Like to me, without the ending, the rest of the story is kind of meaningless, kind of history porn, and I didn't care for it that much.
Well, I would call it less history porn and more scientist porn.
Well,
I mean, it's basically Marvel Universe, science is magic.
Yeah, I think it is, but then I also I feel as if. I mean, scientists are magic, right? I don't feel that it's fair to the people it portrays. I kind of don't really care for their portrayal of Tesla. I feel like there's a lot of ideas floating around, but there's no cohesiveness to it, and I feel like I really need that ending to have that cohesiveness.
There is a lot of stuff thrown at the wall.
And
I think that if we had the last 2 issues to read for this episode, we maybe maybe you would have a different opinion about it.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't hate it.
I actually feel like at this point it's okay to treat some of these historical people like characters, especially because it's so obviously not their historical versions. Tesla never made a super suit that could shoot lightning bolts and travel through time.
It's what were these characters like in the Marvel Universe? Because the Marvel Universe is obviously different from our universe.
This is not Isaac Newton of our universe. This is who Isaac Newton was in the Marvel Universe.
In a universe where anything can happen and, crazy celestial beings appear from outer space, an invasion of brood happens in ancient Egypt, in a universe where there's contact with celestial beings, what do these scientists, these seekers of knowledge, what do they find? Because they're going to find crazier shit than they found in our universe.
And that's what was really so great for me is, there's a splash page in the first issue, I think, where it's, was it Galileo? He builds a giant laser beam device thing to fight Galactus.
He essentially builds what Reed Richards will build, several hundred years later. So it's to fight Galactus.
And I kind of like this idea that super science is something that's always existed.
Yeah, well, it has to.
Even in the Renaissance, there were super scientists then.
Yeah.
Who are the standout scientists of our history.
Right.
But within the context of the Marvel Universe, they are super scientists. They are the superheroes of their eras.
Well, they have to deal with more crazy shit, like Galactus, like alien invasions, and contact with Celestials in ancient China. There's so much more occurring in the universe proper, the large-scale universe.
Well, and that's the thing, though. This is my biggest problem with it, is that those are the coolest parts of the book. And aside from Leonardo and Newton, which I actually think is a pretty accurate depiction of Newton, I think that if you had come to Newton and said, yes, there's this secret organization, we control the world, blah, 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 he would have done exactly what he does in this comic book, because he was, by all accounts, not a very nice person.
Right.
But I think it's a tease. You get all this shit, but it's never expanded on. You never really get to sink your teeth into anything. You have Tesla running around as the night machine, and it seems really cool, but then I just feel like it goes nowhere. You see Galileo with this giant Galactus thing,
and then it's only 10 issues.
I've only read
this 6. Is a let's call it an Elseworld story. This is an Elseworld story that they could do 100 issues in this universe, filling it all out. And kind of describe the pantheon of superheroes from history.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think that's what it needs more than 10 issues. I think that 10 issues is not nearly big enough to do what they want to do, and I think the story suffers because of it.
Well, I don't think that you can really hold that against them. Yeah. That Marvel editorial has not deigned to give them more issues, nor have they had necessarily the time to work on them.
I think that self-editing is as important, though. I think that if you have it's like if you're telling a story through a comic book and you have this idea for a really cool scene, but it kind of veers away from what's going on and you're not going to have time to explain it, then maybe you should leave that scene out.
Well, they did leave that scene out, and then they threw some of them into that one-shot Infinity issue, which to me it kind of explains some of the background of Newton, and you see him killing his enemies and getting into a fight with Leibniz, and that's a lot of fun. It has no place in the larger story, and so they kind of pushed it into this one shot.
I also think that there's nothing wrong with the kind of Lost syndrome, where in the first story arc they're going to throw a lot of information at you that 6 seasons later they can pick and choose what they're going to draw from that.
Right.
Introducing a lot of information early on is really important, because you have the opposite of that, where Invincible wasn't introducing enough information early on and was borderline canceled because people weren't I want to know what happens next.
Right.
It didn't feel like there was more to the universe. And something that Hickman does really well is just give you a ton of fucking information. And if you pick it all up, that's great. If you don't, it doesn't really hurt the story to not know what happens to some of these characters.
Yeah, I sort of agree with you in principle, Joe. I mean, there's a couple of points in the comic where it skips over 3 years.
Yeah.
Just kind of in the background. It's okay, this was 1957, now we're picking up in 1960, and the situation has changed, but we don't get really any explanation of what happened in that time period. That's a little frustrating. It makes the story a little bit weaker than it could have been otherwise, but I understand exactly why he did it, because that stuff, while interesting, isn't necessarily part of the story that he's trying to tell.
Yeah, and what if would you rather have that 3 years in there if nothing important happened in it? You know, like if it's just going to be him going to school to learn about the ancient city under the Vatican or under Rome, you know, is it really going to be that interesting? Or would you rather cut to the action where Machine Man blows, or Night Machine like blows fucking holes in the universe?
Which is cool. No, it's cool when he does that, and it's not so much that the passage of time that passes, even though I don't think that's done very well. I think I understand why it's done the way it is, right? Like, you're experiencing from the point of view, this story from the point of view of somebody who's been kind of ripped out of their existence and exposed to all this information, right? Mm-hmm. So, like, the jaunty time jumps, I think, are important because it allows you to kind of experience that a little bit more viscerally. And that's not really what my problem is. My problem is that I feel that there's a lot of shit in here that's in here because, oh, wouldn't that be cool? That's kind of like, well, it would if maybe you could have fleshed it out a little bit more.
And I hope that they will in the future. Like, I think that not all that stuff is going to just be left behind.
Yeah, and that's kind of why my initial point was, this is something I need to see. Like, I can tell you, I didn't dislike it, but I also didn't care. Like, I wasn't floored by this. I thought the art was amazing. Yeah. I liked the idea. I don't think it was executed very well, but it's not fair to say that because there's not an ending, and I feel like the ending would justify it.
Well, I kind of feel like your complaint isn't, I dislike this, it's, I dislike this because there isn't more of it. Yeah. Well, I wanted a lot more from it than it was willing or able to give me.
Yeah, I think.
Yeah, but I feel like you have that complaint with a lot of books too, though. I feel like we were talking about Tower of Babel the other day, and you had very similar complaints.
Yes, we were talking about Tower of Babel the other day, and I did basically say I would have liked this series to have been at least twice as long.
Yeah, I think
that's only like 5 issues or 6 issues, and it could have very easily been 12 or
so
15.
Like, yeah, after reading this, I can definitely...
I understand your complaint, but I don't feel like it's necessarily fair.
Yeah, and I'm like, I'll be the first one to admit that it may not be fair. Like, and once again, that's like, the first thing I said was, I need the ending to judge the rest of the story. Because without the ending, to me, it's this, and it's I'm glad you brought up Lost, because it's exactly that thing.
Right, well...
All that really good and, like, bunch of information in the beginning would have been great if they had justified it with an amazing ending, which they didn't.
That's why everybody's
not that they didn't, but they haven't yet.
Well...
Right, and the thing about this story that I really loved is, like, the very first pages, you see a lot of information that's going to come back in later issues. You see the Celestial appear in ancient China. That storyline really isn't picked up again until issue 3 or 4. Yeah. Like, there's a lot of time goes by where you, like, see a cool thing, and then you have to wait for explanation to happen. And there weren't a lot of things that I saw that I was like, why haven't they answered that yet? Because by the end of those 6 issues I had read, a lot of the major points had been picked up in some way or another, even just to, like, drop another hint about them, you know, just kind of, like, lead some breadcrumbs along. The guy that keeps... the
glowing man.
Yeah, Michelangelo.
Right.
Is revealed in the end of issue 6, which is as far as I've read. And, like, when that's revealed, that's fine, but it took 6 issues for them to just tell you the guy's name. You know, like, he just keeps appearing, and you're like, what is that guy? What's he doing? Why is he what? And that kind of stuff I think is great, because you're just kind of leading me along and, like, give you a little nugget of information here. Come on, buy the next issue.
I definitely feel like this is best viewed through the lens of, this is not a story about these characters, it is a story about this universe in which these characters exist.
Yeah. Because I was incredibly let down by the revelation of who the glowing man was. I was really...
I actually sat down and read issues 1 through 4 of Volume 2, where they get a lot more into who Michelangelo is, what he's doing, and why.
Right.
And I think retroactively that bleeds back into the first volume. Yeah. It makes it a lot lot better. Yeah. And I think that this is definitely something that's going to need to be read in its entirety for you to really appreciate it.
Yeah. What the cool thing about this series, too, is I think that in a way it's really interesting to try to read this in single issues because a lot of stuff is happening in each issue. But it's also really difficult to read if you're not going to remember what happens if it takes a year between issues 4 and 5 to come out, right? Yeah. So it may be better read in a trade. Mm-hmm. But the nice thing about the trade is, like, they give you all these nuggets of information. It's just like, keep reading. Like, just read the next episode.
It's one of those things where you're watching a YouTube video of a painter, and the way they paint is they fill in certain areas of the canvas first, and you're watching them, and for the first maybe it's a 6-minute video, and for the first 5 minutes you're going, this guy's not fucking talented, and all of a sudden he just makes one stroke, and you're like, whoa, where did that come from? Yeah. It was that was there all along, but when he did this one little thing, that's when it came out. Yeah. That's how I kind of feel this is it needs
Bob
that
Ross
little
and his happy little tree.
Yeah, it's all of a sudden he put just
what is he doing? And then they're like, oh my god,
he adds this one feature, and it's boom, there, and you're like, holy shit, I had no idea that's what that was.
And I feel like Hickman's the kind of writer that can juggle all of these balls and not drop any of them. They're still up there, they just haven't come down yet. You just haven't quite gotten that nugget of information to keep you interested in that storyline. I want to know more about the Brood invasion in ancient Egypt. Probably not going to be in any of these issues ever.
Fairly covered though. That's Marvel continuity though, isn't it? The Brood, the ancient, because
I don't remember that.
Ancient. Who is it? One of the old pharaohs is Rama Khan or not Rama Khan. That's.
Rama-Tut?
Yeah.
Rama-Tut is a time traveler from the future, I'm pretty sure.
Is it? Yeah. It's Kang, right? Rama-Tut is Kang. He goes back and doesn't he deal with the
Kang is Immortalist.
At the end of time, he's Immortalist.
Is he also Rama-Tut?
I think he might also be
also
Rama-Tut.
Apocalypse is alive at that time.
Right.
True, I'm almost positive there was a Brood.
Page, they show you that it's Imhotep,
right.
Apocalypse, and the original Moon Knight.
Right, because he would have been there too.
And which
was really cool, and I would love to see stories set there, but you don't really need it.
Right,
It's just kind of hey, this thing happened. Right. Use your imagination and think about how cool it is in your head.
Right, and if he ever gets time to write a story about it, I'm sure he would. Right, but it's not what this story is about.
Maybe you guys know in the scene where one thing we haven't talked about is it has. Was it Nathaniel Richards and Howard Stark as agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. in the 60s.
I totally did not even realize
hunting Nikolai Tesla.
Yeah.
Which is really, really cool. Through time. And
space.
There's this thing that happens in the background with, I think it's Stark, where he's constantly making things from parts just in the middle of the panel that's never explained.
Right.
But when they go to the future and they're looking at that kind of ruined city and there's a Sphinx there.
Right.
Is that the head on the Sphinx supposed to be like Rama-Tut or something? Or Immortalist, it looks like a character that I should recognize.
I was assuming
thought it was supposed to be a reference.
One of the guys from the Immortal City. I thought it was supposed to be the victor of that conflict that's happening at the time.
That's Immortalist.
Is it?
That's definitely Immortalist.
Yeah.
So,
Hickman loves to throw in these background details.
Yeah.
You look at the splash page in Ancient Egypt, and it's hey, look, there's Moon Knight in the background.
I totally did not even see that. That's really impressive. And that's kind of the thing.
Well, that's the problem that I had with the series as myself, is that I was reading through it, and I was I feel like I'm missing stuff, and I actually stopped myself and slowed down and looked at every single panel on the page really closely, and I started picking up all of these details that I was missing.
I'm sure there's a great annotated guide somewhere online.
That'd be great.
Marvel, genius who's read every Marvel comic ever and knows what all of these references are.
Because they definitely
filled in the panels.
Which, again, this is why I say this is the story of a universe.
Yeah.
Yeah. No. Absolutely. This draws water from the same well as Earth X does. This is the same kind of thing. It's interesting. I just feel like that last little stroke needs to be put in there, because it's the stuff with the human machine and stuff like that needs a payoff to mean anything.
The baby Celestial hasn't really come back into it too much in that 6 issues.
It needs the last 2 issues to really tie it together.
And I think what's great about this series, or one thing that I really like about it, is it's set in the Marvel Universe, which Marvel traditionally has been really bad at filling in all these gaps in time.
Yeah, absolutely.
Marvel, for a long time, happened, all at the same time. Iron Man has always been Tony Stark, and, Captain America was always Steve Rogers, and it's only recently, I feel like, they've tried to create kind of a legacy of characters going forward, and this is kind of that legacy of characters going backward thing that I really like from Matt Fraction's Immortal Iron Fist, from the stuff that Jason Aaron does on Ghost Rider, too.
You could imagine, older Iron Fists showing up in this comic.
Yeah,
there's a scene in China. I mean, there's scenes in China, and you could have just It'd be like, oh look, there's some dude with the Iron Fist like do-rag in the background, and not like just chilling out. Like they were there, they were doing things.
That is the thing that this book did right, and I think immediately for me there's a comparison to 1602, which I got rid. I think 1602 is interesting, and it's Gaiman's. It's well written, it's well thought out, but it's characters that exist now in like another time, which is not as interesting to me as these other characters that we knew were around, like people, I think it would be great to have like a line, like a comic book and like Marvel Comics Presents where you were getting like, somebody was like, I'm going to tell the story of the 12th Iron Fist. Just 3 issues, boom, just one story arc. Or, like, I'm going to tell the story of Tales of En Saba Noir, or, Tales of Immortalis at the end of time. Doing, like, I think there's room for that. I think
that's the kind of thing that's interesting is, like, there are Elseworlds tales like 1602, and there are Elseworlds tales that could possibly be in continuity, like this, or like Hulk Future Imperfect, or Old Man Logan, even where it's like that could be a possible future. Yeah.
I think Earth X could be a possible future too.
Exactly. I think you just invented hypertime.
Wait, really? No, I mean, like, I think that's the kind of thing that works really well is when you put your Elseworld stories, and it's like, it's possible, that is a possible past.
Well,
whereas 1602 is not a possible past for the Marvel Universe.
It's a possible alternate past.
Right.
The whole thing with 1602 is it's predicated on Captain America going backwards in time.
Yeah.
And then I believe at the end of it, he goes back to where he should be, and it undoes that time alteration.
It's like a pocket universe.
Yeah.
Is it? Because I never read the second one.
Yeah, part of the whole concept is like all of these people.
No, it's in the same. It's in the first volume.
Daredevil and the Fantastic Four and Spider-Man all start showing up as people in 1602, and they talk about like the presence of Captain America basically kicked off the existence of all these other people at a time when they should not have existed, and by sending him back to the time where he's supposed to be, it'll kind of stop that from retroactively ever happening.
Right.
Yeah. That's it. We should read that one now that we spoiled it, but it's a good book.
Steve Rogers is a giant Native American with blonde hair.
It came out a long time ago.
It's been a while. If you haven't read it, you should have. Yeah. And you still should. Go and get it.
Go and get it. Yeah. Neil Gaiman.
Not the sequels, just the first 1602 by Neil Gaiman.
Neil Gaiman. That's all you should ever need to know about anything.
He's the kind of guy who will write a comic just to settle his legal debts and still make it awesome.
Yeah.
What legal? He doesn't have legal debts.
That was over the fight for Miracle Man.
Right.
Basically, he needed to raise money in order to get that all settled, and so he got a contract with Marvel to do like 2 or 3 comics.
Buy the pages back from Todd McFarlane, which is why at the beginning of 1602, the dedication says to Todd for making this necessary. Is a shot at Todd McFarlane.
Well, I mean, it wouldn't be the first time he's had to school Todd McFarlane in a court of law.
Well, that's why there's no reprints of Spawn #9 written by Neil Gaiman ever. It's because of their feud. So.
Well, because I think it's because Todd McFarlane, as everybody knows, if you read comic books, if you've ever read anything about comic books beyond the comic books themselves, Todd McFarlane is a monumental flaming asshole.
Very rich, flaming asshole.
That's cool. He can be rich, but he's got bad. It's like he used to write this opinion for this editorial for Wizard magazine. It was called Ego. Everybody's got opinions, and I would always say, in parentheses under that, it should say, "But mine are bad," because he does have opinions. He's incredibly opinionated. Unfortunately, he doesn't have the wherewithal to back up any of them. And you can tell this because he's been sued by the NHL. He's been sued by Gaiman several times.
The National Hockey League?
Yeah, because Al Simmons is the name of a player, and they copyright their players' names.
I know.
And they sent him a cease and desist, and he was like, "No, I'm Todd McFarlane, boo, boo, boo." And they were like...
Yeah. He also has had a lot of...
That was a bitch slap for anyone listening at home.
Yeah, who can't see.
I'm sorry.
Joe. Yeah.
Did you hear that?
No.
Because that was the bitch slap.
Do either of you know who ended up with the Miracle Man rights? Because I have a feeling it was Marvel Comics.
Owns parts of them.
Which I think is really funny because Miracle Man is like an XP of Captain Marvel, the DC Captain Marvel.
Yeah, he's
Didn't Alan Moore write Miracle Man?
Yeah, Alan Moore and Neil Gaiman both.
Well, basically what it was in England, they reprinted Captain Marvel, and then Captain Marvel wasn't being made in the United States anymore, so they like illegally just started making more stories. Where they called him Marvel Man.
Yeah.
And then eventually he became Miracle Man after some copyright feud or something like
that.
With
Marvel Comics. Because it was not printed by Marvel Comics, it was printed by some other comic company. Printed Marvel Man.
Right, but basically Miracle Man is the DC Captain Marvel with the numbers filed off.
Yeah.
And I think it would be actually a really interesting character to import to the Marvel universe, at least on a temporary basis, just to see how he plays.
Well, he's kind of like the Sentry, where he's just like OP in the Marvel universe, so he doesn't really fit in there very well.
OP, that's overpowered and not original poster.
Right, not yet. Yeah, thanks for the footnote, Joe.
Well, I think you have to specify it.
In context, though, do you?
I don't know. OP.
He's original poster in the Marvel universe.
Original poster. I think the question is, will he
go
deliver?
Back to the Big Bang in the Marvel universe? Miracle Man is there, and he's got a sign, and it says first.
It does. He does. He really does. I read that issue, and it was really impressive.
Yeah. What made Miracle Man famous, though, was that Alan Moore took him to a crazy level of.
That's what Alan Moore does.
It was one of the good. It was back when Alan Moore was still writing good, interesting, original things.
Right.
And then
before he started reading about Wendy, Alice, and who else it was? Who was it? I can't.
It
was Wendy, Alice, and a third one, Dorothy. No, was it Dorothy?
Yeah.
I don't know if it was Dorothy.
I think it was
Pretty
Dorothy.
Sure.
It doesn't really matter.
No, I think it was another British character, but it doesn't matter because
Wizard of Oz references.
Everybody was having sex with everybody else, including the men.
It was actually kind of badly written pornography.
It was, yeah.
It was like really bad porn fan fiction.
Yeah. I just think Alan. Anyways,
it's Alan Moore writes /fic about fairy tale characters.
True that.
Yeah, weird.
Nobody
I wouldn't really recommend that one at all.
Yeah, it's called Lost Girls, and if you find it, just don't read it. It's easy. Just don't read it.
Okay, pornography, great. It's really not worth your time.
It's really not.
Yeah.
But yes, Neil Gaiman, read it.
Yes,
and if you're not familiar with Neil Gaiman, then you should just be ashamed of yourself because he's incredibly prominent these days, and there's no reason for you not to be interested.
Maybe shame on us because none of us have ever recommended a Neil Gaiman book.
Yeah, but he's a crossover star. I mean, he's written an episode of Doctor Who. That's pretty mainstream.
Is Doctor Who mainstream?
I think these days it is.
Yeah, I would say so.
I mean, it's as mainstream as you can get in geek culture. He's written Marvel books. He's been on the New York Times bestseller several times for Anansi's Boys, for...
they made Coraline into a movie.
Coraline
Stardust was a movie.
Stardust, American Gods.
He's prolific.
He is incredibly prolific, and there's no reason you should not be at least aware of him and have a passing familiarity with his work. And if you're a comic book fan and you've not read at least a little bit of The Sandman... I just don't know what to tell you.
That's still your bad for not recommending it, Jim.
Oh, I'm sure I have. I'm sure I've talked about it. Have I not recommended it?
You've not
This is my official recommendation to go out and read The Sandman.
Is that your pick this week?
No.
Oh, then it's not official.
And that's why you should read S.H.I.E.L.D.
Yeah.
You should wait until S.H.I.E.L.D. is complete and then read it.
Well, they've already read it. If they're playing along at home, they read it already.
How many are you playing it? Out of all 10 of you, raise your hands if you're playing along at home.
That's the way it works. We tell you what we're going to read 2 weeks before we post the episode, or before we do it.
So they listen to the first episode.
You have to understand that we are experts because we have a podcast. They might have read it, but they didn't know why they read it.
That's true.
They can't appreciate it with the proper amount of nuance until we tell them what to think. Because we have a radio show on the internet.
Yeah,
we do.
That no one listens to. No, it's...
it's going to
10 people.
10,
do we really?
15 people.
Yeah.
I'll do glasses half full.
A rational number of people.
Some people.
A real number of people, which would include the rationals, the integers,
not talk about math at all, ever. This is why we don't have any listeners. Thanks to you.
What are you talking about?
Are they talking about math again? Fuck this show. Hang up.
Hey, math
sounds. You just hang up your modem.
Hang up. I was listening to a podcast the other day, and it got so boring, I just hung up on it.
You hang up your modem, and you stop downloading it.
I think check it out for the art, but wait until it's finished to read it because
I enjoyed it even though it's not done.
You have that right.
I will have to read it again when it is done because I'll have forgotten by the time that it's finished.
Well, then you just get the joy of reading it again.
Exactly.
It's that good.
It's the gift that keeps on giving. Comic books.
It is. So
plus, you get to see a naked, glowing Michelangelo.
And who hasn't wanted to see that?
Really. And not the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle. I'd like to be clear on that. It's not.
Right, that's definitely good to be clear about.
It's it's the actual Renaissance babe. And when we're talking about Leonardo, we're not talking about the turtle either. We're talking about the actual.
I don't think that there are any actual turtles in this comic.
There are no turtles. There are no turtles in this. So
also, if you want to see the naked turtles, they're always naked.
They pretty much are.
Yeah. Well, no, they're wearing belts.
Okay. Yes.
If you're wearing a belt, not naked.
You're not naked.
I find that I've seen pictures of ladies on the internet that are wearing belts and they're pretty damn naked.
I think that counts as naked. I think if you're not covering up,
let me put it this way: if
naked.
I was only wearing a belt right now, you would tell me to put on clothes.
That's fair.
Do you really want to risk that?
No, I don't.
I think the question is, do you really want to risk that?
I don't want to risk it. Can we not? Joe, put your pants back on. I said no.
It's happening. It's happening now.
We can talk about math.
No, that's worse. I'd rather see Joe's genitalia than listen to you guys talk about
who
that.
would not? I think is the question. I think the question is who would not.
I'm sure there's a lot of people that don't want to see your genitalia.
I'm sure there's a lot of people that don't want to see my genitalia but would rather see my genitalia than hear me talk about math.
That might be true.
That's fine. That's fine. So I have something I want to talk about since we're done with S.H.I.E.L.D.
Are we done with S.H.I.E.L.D.?
Yeah, I think that we said all that really needs to be said about S.H.I.E.L.D. I could talk some more about Nathan Richards and Howard Stark.
Keep talking about that.
I really feel like I've said everything that
Nathan and Howard.
Okay. They're awesome in this comic. I wish that there was a comic just about them.
Yeah.
They're obviously gay.
Kind of is this.
Well, I mean, they've kind of got their own plot.
Yeah.
Where they're awesome and traveling through time by themselves.
Yeah.
That's really not connected to other things except tangentially.
It's like a great buddy cop story.
It is a great buddy cop story.
And
with time traveling and
when I said
machines.
And anti-gravity boots.
Yeah.
And when I said gay earlier, I meant that in the 20s sense of the word, which means they're happy and...
Well, they're not exactly happy.
They're not.
No. They're actually kind of bitter.
I would actually not be surprised to find /fic of them out there on the webs, though.
Yeah. I would not be surprised about all that.
Howard is kind of sad at the loss of his family because he...
No, you mean Nathan Richards.
No.
No, he's all like pissed off that he had to leave his family behind, and Howard Stark was like, that was unnecessary.
But I kind of feel like Howard was like more upset than he was letting on.
I'm sure that he was more upset than he was letting on, but I still think he was less upset than Richards.
Richards was upset about leaving his family, but I think he was more upset about accidentally killing the future machine.
The Night Machine?
The Night Machine. I'll never get his name right. The Night Machine.
Yeah,
the Night Man.
I mean, like most Marvel
not the Night Man.
He died and he came back.
Yeah.
So it's okay.
I don't know. I thought the story introduced a lot of really interesting points. I think Joe has a strong point where the end is kind of necessary or just more. Because I don't really want to see it end. I just want to see more comics of it come out.
Well, an end to this arc.
I wish this was an ongoing series.
Yeah, I hope this goes for 100 issues or more. Like, it's honestly that interesting of an idea, and I think there's just a wealth of information to be mined from the Marvel Universe.
I think,
and not enough people are doing it.
As long as you're not doing the meta plot within a meta plot within a meta plot bullshit that really bums me out, that's fine. Like, do an arc, end that arc, and then if you want to have, like, an overarching thing where it's like, the world doesn't end this way, I thought that was really cool. That was a great catchphrase.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
But,
well, it's kind of that X-Files where it's like you can have your monster of the week, but you also get to have your
overarching plot. Yeah,
that's what I want.
If this went on for 5 or 6 years, I think it'd be great. I think it'd be interesting to see those stories. But I think for this particular arc, it's hard for me to judge other than on a completely superficial level, how good it was, because it really needs that.
Well, that's my fault for recommending it without having reread it to make sure that it had an ending.
Well, I'm glad because now I know to look out for it.
Let's put a little feather in our caps to revisit this in a couple of years when those issues kind of come out, just to talk about whether in the final judgment of things whether this was good or only okay. I guess
that's your job out there in the ether. Radioland out there in Radioland.
Yeah, once this episode actually goes up in 2 or 3 years, and the whole thing is out, and we look like idiots, you can tell us about how stupid we are.
Because it'll probably go out concurrent with that.
Yeah.
Because that's how we do things.
Right.
We don't ever want you to really know what's going on.
Yeah, we're gonna keep you in the dark.
We are actually S.H.I.E.L.D. Oh, I shouldn't have said that.
God, we said not on the
You shouldn't have said that because it's a terrible lie.
Also, we don't know how to edit, so there's no way I'm gonna be able to figure that out.
Anyways.
Okay, so I think that's really all that needs to be said about it.
I don't think there's anyone that could be writing this series better than Jonathan.
I agree.
No.
He handles this kind of stuff really well.
It makes me want to go find other things written by him and check them out.
Yeah, no, absolutely. In the same way that reading, I think that's what speaks the most about it, is that it did definitely get me interested to see what Hickman can do when he actually, is working within something maybe that he did or something a little bit smaller in scope.
Yeah.
Because I definitely think he's got the talent there. He's got the ideas are there, and I think that's what's important.
I like his meta stuff too, though. He's done another book in the Marvel Universe, Secret Warriors, that had a lot of,
Is that no, that's Secret Defenders I'm thinking of.
Yeah, Secret Warriors added a lot of mythos to Hydra in a really interesting way that I liked. So if you guys kind of like the thing that he's doing here, where he's just adding more mythos to the Marvel Universe, check out Secret Warriors.
Okay. I can't think of Hydra without thinking of Hydra Bob.
Yeah.
And
Bob Agent of Hydra.
Agent of Hydra. Which makes me think, I just read Daniel Way's run on Deadpool, and I thought it was good. It's not as good as Joe Kelly's run.
Yeah.
But that's kind of like saying...
It's better than Cable Deadpool, though, right?
I liked Cable and Deadpool. I liked it. I mean, it wasn't as... I don't think it stood up to... I think Joe Kelly's run on Deadpool nails it.
Yeah.
And puts the character where it needs to be.
That's like saying, I don't think run on Thor X is as
good as Walter Simonson's run on... That's exactly what I was about to say. It's like saying, Bendis' run on Daredevil isn't Frank Miller's run on Daredevil or whatever. I think that there's benchmarks, and... it's hard to do that, but I've heard a lot of people complain about Daniel Way's run on Deadpool, and I thought it was decent. I thought it was good. I mean, I think he comes across as stupid, but I think that's taking him at base level. I think he's just crazy.
I think one of the things that happened, unfortunately, during Daniel Way's run on Deadpool was that run was excellent, and everybody loved Deadpool, so they put out 800 Deadpool books at the same time, and that negatively affected Daniel Way's book, which was clearly the best
one. Yeah. Although I do have to say that I really enjoyed Deadpool Max. I really enjoyed. It's just like 12 issues, I think, and then like another 10 issues, and it's totally outside of the. Continuity.
It's a Max line.
And it's Kyle Baker, and I cannot remember who does the art, but it's brilliant. And Sean Crystal, I know, does some of the art, and there's a few others, but that's really good. I really enjoyed that. Because that's just batshit crazy.
Yeah, Daniel Way's stuff was definitely the best of the Deadpool.
Yeah,
in that
modern,
era, in that
volume 2 era.
800 Deadpool books.
But,
all right, we want to move on to recommendations.
We can do Rex. I think you should go first. You have a secret book.
I have a secret book. I just pulled it out. This week, month.
Oh,
fortnight,
damn.
I'm recommending Cosmic Odyssey.
I was going to recommend that.
No, you were not.
No, I wasn't.
Get out of here. Jim Starlin and Mike Mignola. Mike Mignola is penciling on this one. And Jim Starlin... of Marvel Cosmic fame, amongst many other things. Penciled this great DC book, and it's awesome. Pitches kind of... There's a handful of heroes that set out into the greater DC Cosmic Universe to go avert a major threat. They have to kind of ally with Darkseid, however you say it.
Darkseid.
And it's really great. It draws on a lot of the Fourth World stuff that Jack Kirby set out. It's got a lot of really great characters in it. Martian Manhunter, Batman, Superman, Starfire,
Is that the Ray?
There's Etrigan.
Oh, yeah. That's the Ray.
It's got all kinds of, what is this, Lightspeed? Is that
Lightspeed, that's his name.
Yeah, Lightspeed and all of the characters of Fourth World whose names I forget. And a really major plot point in the evolution of John Stewart, the Green Lantern, as a character, happens in this book. That goes on to affect the rest of his...
Is this a modern age?
It was printed in 88.
Okay, so it's right at the tail end of the Silver Age.
Yeah, it's technically modern age. Because 85 was Christ.
Oh, right. 85 was.
Very firmly planted in the modern age.
I totally got confused.
This trade was printed in 92, but...
I think Crisis was 86.
It might have been 86.
Or maybe it just ended in 86.
Yeah. It took a year, so it happened...
Right.
In there somewhere.
I remember that Secret Wars was 85, and they rushed that out to beat Crisis on Infinite Earths.
Yeah, that sounds right. Yeah, but also, I always thought it was 85 though, because Infinite Crisis was 2005, and that was like an anniversary of Crisis on Infinite Earths.
I thought Infinite Crisis was 2007.
Well, I don't know. I have no idea.
I'm probably wrong about that.
Look at Wikipedia for your information.
If it was like September 85 to September 86,
I have no idea. But so this is very firmly a modern age story. It's got a lot of great characters. Etrigan the Demon is in it. This is where he rejoins with Jason Blood because they had been separated at some point in time.
Well, I love Jim Starlin and I love Mike Mignola, so even if we don't pick that, I'm definitely going to want to.
Yeah, you should. It's amazing. I love Jim Starlin's work so much. This is a fantastic DC story. The art is amazing. Mignola nails that kind of Jack Kirby Fourth World feel. He obviously nails Gotham City. He's done that several times, and it's great. It's a really good plot point. They're at some really awesome planets in the DC universe. Ran and Thanagar are both in here. New Genesis, Apocalypse, all your favorite Fourth World spots, as well as some other DC cosmic stuff. And it's really awesome, and everyone should read it.
Well, I'm a big fan of anytime somebody that isn't Hal Jordan as Green Lantern, I'm a big fan of it, because I think those are really interesting characters.
Oh, man, and there's just some great moments in here between... They all break up into teams of two, and one team of two is John Stewart and Martian Manhunter, and that's is like confusing. The most moving part in the whole story.
John.
Yeah. I forgot. Adam Strange.
Well, you mentioned Ran. Ran is,
That's his stomping grounds.
Yes.
One of
them.
They team
up with him there. Hawk. Well, no, these are just Thanagarians. Just standard Thanagarians.
Just Thanagarians? What is that supposed to mean?
They're not Hawk Girl and Hawkman?
So
that's a little bit racist.
That's what I mean.
That's racist.
They're not the important Thanagarians.
I can't believe I apologize.
Thanagarians look the same to you.
Trigger warning.
Have you seen these guys? They're literally like copy
so what you're saying
of Hawkman.
So what you're saying is that you can't tell them apart. They all look alike to you.
Also, I'm pretty sure the Thanagarians must be colorblind.
Yeah.
Well, you look at their outfits. It's green pants with red trunks.
It's Christmas colors. It's always Christmas on Thanagar.
It's Christmas in Thanagar.
That's a well-known fact.
It really is. Did you not read?
You didn't know that?
Didn't know that.
No.
That was a special. It was called Christmas on Thanagar.
Is it always Halloween on Ran? Is that why they're at war?
Yeah,
it's always Hanukkah. Duh.
I was not sure. Orion's in this. Forgot about that. He teams up with Superman.
Oh, well,
And
having a New God story without Orion is like not having a New God story.
Yeah, and Batman teams up with what is this guy's name? I never remember.
Captain Shoulder Pads?
No, well, he does have shoulder pads, but it's
his name is Captain Amazo. That's not true. That's not true at all.
Why don't you look that up? And Joe, you can tell us about your recommendation.
So it's funny because I had a recommendation firmly in mind, and that's what I'm going to go with. But I've had just a bitch of a time kind of sticking with it because there's so many other things I want to read and talk about. But I'm going to pick Stumptown by Greg Rucka. And I cannot for the life of me remember who does the art right now. But it's Detective story. It's a mystery. It takes place in Oregon, in Portland, I believe.
It's just outside of Portland.
Or
it's
just
like
outside.
Unnamed suburban town X.
Right.
Not suburban town, but small town X.
And it's just, I think it's Greg Rucka doing what he does best, which is writing really great characters. I think flawed characters. And just telling really great dynamic stories. I think it's the main character is this female detective, and she ends up working for a
Forager is the name of the character that teams up with Batman.
Forager.
It's a fourth
How
world.
could we forget about the great Forager?
Yeah, exactly.
Forager.
So basically, I think beloved characters
his power is to be like a squirrel.
Yeah, I think he gets a costume change in this story arc too. So,
well, obviously he was important.
Because he's super important.
True. He really is. Yeah. I can't believe you guys haven't read that one guy's run on Forager. Yeah. Man of the wilderness.
He was a Jack Kirby creation. He's a fourth world character.
Yeah, it's all good. It's all. He sounds more like a sixth world creation to me. But
I'm surprised that there wasn't a crossover between him and Squirrel Girl.
Yeah, no, there should have been.
Despite the fact that they're in different universes.
Well, that was the amalgam character based on him was Squirrel Forager. Squirrelager. It was Squirrelager. So now, before I go and kill myself for making that joke, Stumptown. The main character is this PI that ends up incurring a huge amount of debt at one of the native casinos out there, and ends up basically the owner of the casino will write off her debt if she finds her granddaughter. And it kind of spirals out from there. But it's very cinematic. The art is stunning, I think. And it flows really well. And I think with a mystery story, it's really easy to kind of chop out certain parts or kind of end it unsatisfactorily. And I don't think Rucka does that. I think he nails it. I think it's definitely a home run. And it's definitely in the same vein to me as I think Rucka writes great characters. And I think because of that, he writes great women characters, which in comics are rare. And it's hard to find somebody who writes women characters as something more than just tropes or, boobs. Plot devices with large orbs on their chest. So, as normally, even if we don't go with it, you should definitely seek out Stumptown and buy it. There's a sequel getting ready to come out, and I'm sure it'll be excellent. But, very much in the same vein as, like, Whiteout, but set in a much more urban setting. Temperate, and much more temperate, and with less frostbite. And it has less crappy movies that were based on it.
Although it did just get optioned, Stumptown did just get optioned.
Oh, I'm sure it did. It's very cinematic.
We could get an awesome crappy movie based on that.
It could be an amazing movie. I think if you like Renee Montoya as The Question and you like what he was doing with that character, I think Stumptown is a great book because I think this character kind of reminds me of that. Renee Montoya thing.
Whatever, Stocco or what was the name from Whiteout, which is one of my favorite
That's great. Don't, if you saw the movie and you didn't read the book, don't let it put you off because it's really the book is amazing,
infinitely better,
excellent. And Steve Lieber does the art, and
it's amazing.
It really is amazing. So yeah, Stumptown, good stuff.
Yay,
Stumptown.
My pick for this episode is Rasl. Rasl.
Jeff Smith.
Smith. It was the work that he did after Bone, and after Shazam, which I previously recommended.
Which was good.
It's like 2 short volumes. It's black and white. It's about this guy. He's a government scientist who invents these like handheld engines that let you jump between parallel universes.
Dimension.
And when the story picks up, he's on the lam because he's stolen them, because he doesn't want the government to use them as weapons.
Right.
And so he's kind of jumping from universe to universe, trying to stay away from the government people who are trying to hunt him, and he's trying to make money, but he also runs into like multiple alternate versions of his ex-girlfriend.
Yep.
Or the woman that he's in love with. And eventually the bad guys catch up with him, and they threaten him, and he runs away, and there's lots of running back and forth, and it's a really great story.
And art theft.
Very, it's a significant departure from what he's previously done on Bone, which is his major work.
The two previous works he did were all ages books, and this is very much not that.
This is definitely not that.
Yeah.
I think this would make an excellent movie.
Yeah, it's got some really interesting dimension jumping, things that happen. This is the one where he's stealing art, right?
Right. Well, at the beginning, he's stealing art.
Yeah.
Because he can kind of do that to make money. He's in one universe. They ask him to steal something. He jumps to another universe, steals it, then jumps back to the first one so the cops aren't looking for him.
Right. And because it is actually not a fake, that when they test it to see, is it real? Like, it is real, but it is not the one from that universe.
Right.
So it's interesting. Some universe jumping stuff.
And there's some weird existential oddity.
Yeah.
There's some kind of meditations on science and warfare and the atomic bomb, and kind of the responsibility of scientists to not allow their creations to be used for wicked purposes. It's a really interesting story. It is a lot more adult than his previous things. If you think of Jeff Smith as a kiddie writer, I definitely recommend it. I caught up with it right when it had ended this year.
Yeah.
And it's really good.
Is there more coming?
I don't think so. It's a self-contained story. It was printed in 2 large format volumes, and then reprinted as 1 smaller format volume. Yeah.
Sounds interesting. I'm a big Jeff Smith fan. Bone is amazing.
Yeah, it's also black and white.
It is black and white.
Like Bone was originally. And maybe we'll see this colored someday in the way that Bone was.
I don't think it really would be benefited by being in color.
I said that about Bone too, though, but I was wrong.
That's true.
Yeah, Scott Pilgrim I have that first volume colored, and I think it looks beautiful.
Yeah.
So, I think it adds something.
I think as long as you get the right colorist for the job, things can work out.
The thing is that Smith's shading is so good. His use of light and shadow is incredible.
He's super thoughtful about it.
And I think that when you colorize it, you diminish that somewhat.
Yeah.
No, I think you can, if you don't have the right color.
There are some scenes in Bone. There's this whole sequence that happens during this storm, and it's incredibly blackout for 3 or 4 issues, I want to say, that this is going on.
Yeah.
And just the way that he uses blackness is incredible.
It is a really oppressive feeling, and just instills really good emotion into the scene. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think that color can definitely take away from that. I think some stories need to be told in black and white. I think Asterios Polyp, the way that's done with just 1 color, 3 or 4 colors, but they're solid. It's
printed in duotone.
Yeah.
2 colors, but the color, it changes depending on the character.
And the character and what's going on.
And it's the line art that's colored, too.
Right.
It's not your traditional comic style.
Yeah.
And I don't think it's necessarily a matter of this story is best told in color or black and white. It's that the story should be viewed in the way that it was created originally. Just like you shouldn't colorize a movie, I think generally you shouldn't colorize comics either. Now, that can be done to good effect, as it was in Bone or
I really like
Scott
the colors
Pilgrim.
in Bone.
But I think if I had to recommend one to somebody, I would say check it out as it was originally done.
Yeah, I definitely. I mean, I think the source material should always be checked out first.
Yeah, I love the colors on Bone, so I would have no problem giving someone that first. But I do like having read it in black and white first. Personally, for me, I kind of like going back to the original before I watch the special edition or before I see the remastered edition, essentially. So
yeah,
it's kind of fun to do that in that order.
All right. So what are you voting for, Chard?
I'm gonna pick Stumptown. I never finished reading it. And I've read Rasl.
I kind of want to read Rasl, but then I also kind of want to read Cosmic Odyssey because
I'm going to suggest that you vote for Cosmic Odyssey because I was going to vote for Cosmic Odyssey, and if you vote for Rasl, then we have a three-way tie.
Yes,
and that would cause problems.
But I want my book to be picked because I think it's superior to both of yours. So now I'm just thinking.
So if you pick Rasl, then you're forcing Toby to pick Stumptown? Because that's not true. He could just make us read all three next week.
Yeah, right? Maybe that's what I want to happen.
So it's hard when we have a tie.
I think we need a contingency plan for that. But I think that you should vote for Cosmic Odyssey.
Why I usually vote last? Because I just changed my vote to make it not a tie.
You could.
Well, that's what I usually do, is just end up doing that.
See, I want to read Cosmic Odyssey, but I don't necessarily want to talk about Cosmic Odyssey.
Why not? It's great. I think you'll enjoy it.
Oh, read Cosmic Odyssey, that's what we're doing.
Now I kind of want to read Rasl instead. Not just because I recommended it, but because I went back through the previous episodes that have gone up already, and I tagged them all, and we've done a lot of DC compared to other things.
That's because DC's better.
No.
DC's better at superheroes. I'm taking back.
I've read more superheroes since I started doing this podcast than ever before in my life. I am an indie guy. I don't read a lot of superheroes.
Yeah. That's why it's nice having Brant here. He's not here, as you can tell.
He's only been on one.
He's only been on one or two.
I think he was on two.
Yeah.
Because he's our Marvel guy.
He suggested Empire, which we read, and I think he was on the episode where we talked about
it. Which is a DC book.
It is a DC book.
It is a DC book. And I didn't like it.
Yeah.
I want to try and read about... I'd like to read a book where Triathlon is in it.
We're never going to read a book with Triathlon.
If you've read... he's in Civil War.
I didn't read Civil War.
I did. Yeah.
I read bits and pieces of it, and I said to myself, why am I doing this to myself? I hate Mark Miller. He should die in a hole.
I think Cosmic Odyssey is what I'm going to pick.
Toby, for your benefit too, this is the same Jim Starlin who would go on to popularize Adam Warlock.
Well, he created Adam Warlock. Probably actually before this.
I think it was...
No, wait, yes.
Because I'm pretty sure Warlock was earlier 80s.
I think this comes out after
Isn't it 70?
I don't know.
I think this is after Infinity Gauntlet.
Anyway, we're gonna read Cosmic Odyssey, and you should too.